So Blizzard got some explaining to do, and explaining they have been doing. Here we go. Blizzard talked a little bit about the increases in level difficulty, gave us some details exactly on what they've done and why they've done it. So let's get into that. And by the way, I think people yesterday misunderstood me when I was saying, oh, this is a travesty. I was not over-dramatizing it. All I was saying was the optics on this whole thing weren't the best because they probably should have gotten this done prior to early access ending. It's just the whole thing of, early access ended and then this came in. It just looks like a little bit like, hey, you peasants out there, here's a nerf, deal with it. It is what it is. But here's what people wanted to see, and this is what Blizzard did. And I actually think these changes kind of were necessary because things were a bit broken. So these changes are aimed to make the difficulty curve more gradual. Enemy strength will actually increase by less per level in mid to high 70s than it used to. Players coming from Dragonflight endgame gear should still feel overpowered at level 70, and then players coming in with basic level gear from Dragonflight item level 300s should find leveling more manageable and get powerful gear quickly. This was actually a buff, believe it or not. So while everything got a little bit harder, it got easier for people like this. And then combat at 78 and up will be completely unchanged. So if you were already level 78 or higher, you're not going to notice any difference. And they're keeping an eye on things to ensure that things remain balanced. So what exactly were the changes that they implemented? Well, here they are. So at level 70, this is at a baseline level. Starting here, you'll see that the health of enemies was buffed by 123%, and their damage was buffed by 116%. So more health, more damage, means longer time to kill mobs, means longer time to complete quests, and that's why people are saying, oh, this is going to make leveling take longer. That's what this whole thing was about. And it really was about just making mobs, last a little bit longer, because at the end of the day, yes, even me as a blood DK, I was literally gathering entire areas and wiping them clean by just blood boiling them to death, which is an interesting way to kill mobs. It's not something that I typically do, but it was happening. So at level 1, so the scaling continues to go down, we see. At level 78 here, 79, it's barely anything at this point. Not much, but here's the other thing that happened that I didn't even realize had happened. And this was a nerf modifier for people with low item levels coming in. So there were some comments for people I noticed in my last video saying, oh, how are you guys so powerful? How are you guys doing this? That's pretty good for a crappy blood DK. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. The COVID coughs are coming. People with low item levels coming into the expansion weren't experiencing the same overpoweredness that many of us were experiencing who had geared their asses out towards the end of Dragonflight. Well, for those people, there's actually been a nerf implemented. So this scaling means if you are item level 342, mobs will be nerfed to 54% health and damage of what they currently were. So that'll make things a little bit easier. And then once you're at 424, there is no modifier. You can just, continue on with everybody else's, and you'll actually be dealing with this end of things as you level up. Note, there is no threshold, but a linear function, so if you are 366, it should be a 43% nerf. Okay, so yeah, nerfs and buffs across the board, and Blizzard just wanted to make things, a little bit easier for some people and a little bit harder for others, but that was the gist of it, was just creating mobs that actually survive for a second. One weird thing that happened when Reset came back up was Blizzard disabled crafting orders. Nobody knows why. The only thing the Blue Post said was, we've identified issues with NPC and player crafting orders and have taken them offline temporarily as we work on the fix. We'll provide an update once they are back up and running. If anyone's playing right now, you can tell me if they are back up and running yet. I'm not quite aware of whether these are still down or not. But something happened, and Blizzard didn't want to say what. So on the back end, it might have been some kind of a, back end door. People were making a lot of gold off of this or something, but Blizzard's fixing it or already has fixed it. So crafting orders currently disabled. Another thing that happened was the auction house was kind of buggy. So if you had purchased anything when servers came back up, and maybe a little bit into today as well, there's been some cogwheel loading, all kinds of weird stuff. Blizzard did put out a statement mentioning that there are player issues with the auction house that they're aware of. During this time, players might experience slower processing times with the auction house, so stay tuned for more updates. But it's not all bad news, guys. Blizzard did enable the Omen. The unified quest is now available, so that means you can get your second Fractured Omen and start your crafting. That's right, with 2 Fractured Sparks of Omen, you can create your Spark of Omen, which will allow you to craft gear up to 597, upgradable into the 600s, by the way. So this is really good crafting gear. So now that you have your final Spark, for the first time you can craft in the War Within and make some really good gear. Although it might be best to kind of hold off, as Blizzard have been still applying constant hotfixes to embellishments, so you might want to wait until this first season, September 10th, starts to kick off, and then you really start crafting your stuff. If you are into Transmog, there's some very interesting Transmog to be had that maybe you didn't know about, and you can get it with some currencies that aren't very important to you. So every time that you've hit Renown, or not every time, some specific Renown levels for different reputations, you've gotten this Earthen Encrusted Gem. Now this has kind of been useless. I really didn't know what to use this for, but here it is. You can use it for these Transmog sets. So if you go to Ascidian, he is currently sitting in Dornegal at 5760. You can go to him and actually buy these Transmog sets with these Earthen Encrusted Gems. Now you can use Resonant Crystals to do it as well, but why the hell would you do that when you can use the Earthen Encrusted Gems, which really have no other use? So go here, get these Transmogs. You can go ahead and get them. There's like 30 different Transmogs in total if you count the different colorways, but this is what they look like. They're actually pretty highly detailed. These are considered to be the, what are they called? They call them civilian Transmogs. Yes, so if you just want to look like a regular old civilian, I mean, you're a wizard, Harry. This is actually a pretty cool Transmog for mages. I love the little scrolls on the belt and everything, the witch's hat. This is pretty nice. So, again, these come in different colorways as well, equaling up to like 30 different Transmogs. This one just looks like the, what's it called? The Heritage Armor for the Worgen people. Yeah, so this is a cool looking one, I guess, if you want something like that. And then we got our little snake charmer set. I don't know what you would call this, but this looks like a leather set. So here it is, a leather, it looks like a leather, a cloth, a mail, and a, well, these are all cloth, really, some leather. But these are just Transmogs. You can wear them no matter what. They're pretty cool. My favorite's probably the mage of these. Again, you can get them with these nice little earth-encrusted gems. Yeah, so nice way to use that currency. The Belladar Crystal Timer is important for this mount. Riding around the other day, a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were into it. A lot of people want this mount. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you get it, because it is quite interesting, and it is very much time limited per day, so you only have a couple shots to really get this mount. But here it is. So we all know the Halifal Crystal switches into Void, and it'll turn dark for 30 minutes. This happens once every 3 hours. And during its darkened Void phase, the Belladar's spawn comes out. And if you find this thing, which is a rare elite, and kill it, you have a shot at getting the Belladar spawn mount. So you only have a couple opportunities a day to really get this done. Players will have a chance to fight the rare elite once every 3 hours only during the Void phase, and it's a drop chance. So nobody knows, I think, what the drop chance is, but there is a drop chance that you could get this really cool Voidling mount. I mean, this is probably one of the cooler Swirly Boy mounts I've seen. I remember getting these during what was it, Shadowlands? We were getting them for the Mythic Plus season. But this one, the purple one, I mean, this is a classic Voidy Boy. If I was a Warlock, this would be my end game goal. You got to get this if you're a Warlock, for sure. But really cool looking mount. And again, you just time things right. There are add-ons that'll show you the timing of the darken and light phase if you want to get them. WoWHead advertises one here. But get in there. If you see the Void Crystal, go find this Belladar's spawn and kill it and give yourself a chance at getting this mount. And then speaking of mounts, one of these will soon no longer be available. So if you know who Miss Xyluan is, this was a little NPC in Valdrakken that used to sell some rare items for a lot of gold. She was basically a gold sink vendor. So if you go to her, you would be able to get this golden lotus thing. Yeah, the golden resonant crystal would give you this mount, which is known as the, what's this called? Golden Regal Scarab, yes. For 1.2 million gold, you yourself could ride the Golden Regal Scarab. Now, what's important about this? She is actually moving. She's moving to Dornegal, and once she does, her item list will probably change. So you won't be able to get this anymore. So if you do want the Golden Scarab for 1.2 million gold, again, it's a pretty big one, you're going to want to go ahead and get this. Also, the Empress of the Whimpering Blade, this is another one for 200,000 gold that you might want to try to get. A nice little remake of a classic weapon in full gold. So this is pretty cool. Again, she's a gold sink vendor, basically. But she is moving, again, to Dornegal. She's going to change her outfit and everything, and she's going to change the items available. So if you did, in fact, want these items, this is probably your last week to be able to do so, because I think she's moving at the next reset. So there you go. That is all in terms of news.